Hi, good morning and welcome to our meditation. Today is the 11th of April. I would like to read again in Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 13. Evil will never leave the house of one who pays back evil for good. So we saw the other day how the life of one of the sons of Noah became a nightmare because he paid evil for good. And today I'd like to share with you about the life of King Saul, who also paid evil for good. He became the first king of Israel, but then anointed by God to become the king. But then later on he was rejected because he actually did obey God. He didn't do what God told him to do. And God chose for Israel another king, King David. That's going to become one of the greatest kings of that nation. It's very interesting to see how David's career started. He was actually going to the front to take some food to his brothers who were older than him and who were fighting with the army of Israel. They were fighting the Philistines. And then in 1 Samuel chapter 17, there is a very, very, very well-known story. It's the story of David and the giant Goliath, who was actually a hero for the Philistines. So no one wanted to face that giant, to fight that giant, and David did. And when David killed that giant, he became very popular in Israel. And then later on, he joined the army and he became a very, very important person in that army. So every time he came back from a battle and entered the capital, people, women, everyone they were praising him. So King Saul was really jealous and he decided to kill David. And I remind you that David also worked as a musician in the palace, playing his instrument to the king, for the king. And then in 1 Samuel chapter 19 verse 1, it's written, Saul told his son Jonathan and all his servants to kill David. But Jonathan had to take a great liking to David. So they became very good friends when David used to work for Jonathan's father in the palace. So King Saul now is going to decide to persecute David and to kill him. And then in 1 Samuel chapter 24, we find a very interesting story when David was in the desert and Saul arrived with his army and he was in a cave and David had the opportunity to kill the king. And he didn't kill the king because he believed that the king was chosen by God. He was God's anointed and it wasn't up to him, for him to kill that man. So Saul is going to cry and call David his son and praise David for being a nice person and so on. But the next day, he will start again to persecute David. What is going to happen to that king? So David, one day, when he's already a king, he's going to tell his wife, Micah, who was actually Saul's daughter, Michal, that it was actually God who chose him, David, to become the king. King Saul was killed with his son Jonathan in a war against the Philistines. David didn't have to kill him. What you're going to realize reading that story is that evil will never depart from that king's house, as Solomon, David's son, wrote later on. Evil will never leave the house. Why? Because, of course, Saul is going to lose the throne and none of his children will become king. Most of them will be killed. Why evil will never leave the house of one who pays back evil for good? Because evil can never, never, never produce good things. Never. The wages of sin, as Paul says in Romans chapter 6, will always be death. God have mercy on us.